The chandelier glittered like a constellation trapped in glass, casting golden flecks across the mahogany dining table. The air in the Harper family's sprawling Connecticut estate hummed with the clink of crystal stemware and the rich aroma of aged Bordeaux. It was Robert Harper's 60th birthday, a night of opulence where the elite of Greenwich gathered to celebrate the patriarch's legacy. At the head of the table, Robert, a silver-haired titan of industry, presided with the confidence of a man who'd built an empire. His sons, Ethan, 32, and Caleb, 36, flanked him, their tailored suits and easy smiles radiating success. The room buzzed with their tales of triumph. Ethan's latest coup at a Manhattan ad agency. Caleb's record-breaking quarter in hedge fund management. Robert's eyes gleamed with pride as he raised his glass. "To my boys," he declared, his voice booming. "You've made the Harper name shine brighter than ever." At the far end of the table, Emily Harper, 24, sat quietly, her fingers tracing the edge of her napkin. Her chestnut hair was swept into an elegant updo, but her hazel eyes burned with a quiet fire. She'd always been the outlier in this family of high achievers, the one whose dreams never quite aligned with her father's towering expectations. Tonight, with her college graduation looming, Emily felt the weight of her moment. She'd spent months wrestling with career paths, law, finance, tech, but none sparked the passion she craved. Then, she'd stumbled upon an idea that felt right, starting a premium cleaning service. A business that could transform an overlooked industry into something extraordinary. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. Taking a deep breath, Emily spoke, her voice cutting through the chatter. "I have some news about my future." The room stilled, all eyes turning to her. "After I graduate, I'm going to work in the cleaning industry. I want to start my own company, offering high-end cleaning services for luxury homes and offices." The silence that followed was deafening. Robert's glass hit the table with a thud, the wine sloshing over the rim. "Cleaning?" he spat, his voice laced with disbelief. "My daughter wants to be a maid?" The word, maid, dripped with disdain, as if it were something shameful, unworthy of the Harper legacy. Ethan smirked, leaning back in his chair, while Caleb let out a low chuckle. Emily's cheeks flushed, but she pressed on. "It's not just cleaning, Dad. It's a business. The service industry is vital. And I see an opportunity to innovate." "Innovate?" Robert interrupted, his laughter sharp and cruel. "You think scrubbing floors is innovation? I've poured millions into your education, sent you to the best schools. And this is how you repay me? By becoming a maid?" His voice rose, echoing off the high ceilings. "This family doesn't need a maid. Emily, if you're set on this ridiculous plan, you can walk out that door and never come back." The room seemed to shrink, the weight of his words pressing against her chest. Her mother, Margaret, reached out, her voice soft but trembling. "Robert, let her explain," but Robert waved her off, his face a mask of disappointment. "There's nothing to explain. Ethan's running a top-tier agency. Caleb's managing billions. And you," he pointed at Emily, "want to mop floors? You're a disgrace." Emily's hands trembled, but her voice held steady. "I'm not just a maid. I'm going to build something big. Something you'll wish you'd understood." She stood, her chair scraping against the polished floor. "And if that's not good enough for you, then fine. I'll leave." Robert's eyes narrowed. "You won't last a week out there. You'll come crawling back, begging for forgiveness." But Emily didn't flinch. She turned, walked upstairs to her room, and packed a single suitcase. That night, only Margaret saw her off, pressing a small envelope of cash into her hands. "You're stronger than he knows," Margaret whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Show him what you're made of." By dawn, Emily was gone, leaving behind the only home she'd ever known. In her heart burned a singular resolve: to prove them wrong. To build something so undeniable that her father's scorn would turn to regret. 8 years later, Emily Harper was no longer the overlooked daughter. From a tiny apartment in Brooklyn, she'd built Harper Elite Solutions, a premium cleaning company that catered to Manhattan's elite, penthouse owners, Fortune 500 CEOs, and celebrities who valued discretion and perfection. Her company grossed 9 figures annually, with 250 employees and a reputation for excellence. But Emily didn't stop there. She'd expanded into organizational consulting, leveraging her team's intimate knowledge of workspaces to optimize efficiency. Under the name He's Consulting, she'd become a silent partner to some of the biggest corporations in America, including, unbeknownst to her family, her father's own investment firm. In those 8 years, Emily had also built a life. She married Daniel Carter, a brilliant cybersecurity consultant who shared her vision and became her business partner. Together, they had 2 children, Lucas, 6, and Ava, 4. Their family was a fortress of love and support, a stark contrast to the cold judgment of her past. Only Margaret, her mother, knew the full scope of Emily's success, calling in secret to hear updates about her grandchildren and the empire Emily had created. "You should tell your father," Margaret would urge, but Emily always shook her head. "Not yet. Not until they can't ignore me." The invitation to Robert's 68th birthday arrived, as it did every year, a formality Emily had always ignored. But this time, something shifted. She was ready, not to seek approval, but to claim her place. She typed a simple reply, "I'll be there." The family group chat exploded with surprise, followed by an uneasy silence. They weren't prepared for what was coming. The Greenwich estate hadn't changed in 8 years, its manicured lawns and marble columns as imposing as ever. Emily pulled into the driveway in a sleek, custom-ordered Tesla, its quiet elegance speaking volumes. Daniel squeezed her hand, his green eyes steady but concerned. "You ready for this?" he asked. "More than ever," Emily replied, her voice calm but resolute. From the back seat, Lucas piped up, "Mom, Grandpa's house is like a castle." Ava giggled, pressing her nose to the window. "Be good. You too," Emily said, smoothing her tailored blazer. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a navy dress that exuded power, paired with heels that clicked with authority. This wasn't about fitting in, it was about owning the moment. Inside, the party was in full swing. Robert held court at the head of the table, a glass of bourbon in hand, basking in his role as the untouchable patriarch. Ethan and Caleb were there, laughing over cocktails, their success stories as polished as the silverware. When Emily stepped through the door, the room faltered. Robert's eyes locked on her, a flicker of confusion breaking through his smug exterior. Then, a sneer curled his lips. "Well, look who's back, the prodigal maid, finally remembering where she belongs." The guests turned, their gazes a mix of curiosity and judgment. Emily smiled, unruffled. "Happy birthday, Dad. It's been a while." Before anyone could respond, Daniel appeared, holding Lucas and Ava's hands. "This is my husband, Daniel," Emily said, her voice clear. "And our children, Lucas and Ava. Meet your grandfather and uncles." The room froze. "Married?" Robert stammered. "Children?" Margaret rushed forward, tears brimming as she knelt to hug her grandchildren. "Oh, my darlings," she whispered, then embraced Daniel. She shot Emily a knowing glance. She'd kept her daughter's secret all these years. Ethan's jaw dropped. "Why didn't we know about this?" he demanded. "Because you never asked," Emily replied coolly. "In 8 years, not one of you reached out. Only Mom cared enough to check on me." Robert's face hardened, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of loss. He was staring at a family he didn't know, grandchildren whose first steps he'd missed, a son-in-law he'd never met. The dinner proceeded awkwardly, the air thick with unspoken tension. Margaret flitted about, refilling glasses, her laughter forced. Ethan and Caleb reverted to their usual boasts, but their words felt hollow. Robert, as always, praised his sons, his favoritism blatant. Then his gaze landed on Emily. "And then there's the maid," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "While my sons build empires, she's still playing with brooms and buckets." Laughter erupted, Ethan's sharp, Caleb's forced. Emily sat still, her hands folded, her expression serene. She'd waited for this moment. When the laughter died, she stood, her movements deliberate. "Actually, Dad, I brought you a birthday gift." From her purse, she pulled a sleek black envelope and placed it before him. "It's something you've always wanted." The room fell silent. every eye on the envelope. Robert tore it open with a flourish, expecting something trivial. Instead, he pulled out a photograph, a stunning beachfront mansion in the Hamptons. All glass and steel, its windows reflecting the Atlantic's endless blue. "This is Ocean Crest," he muttered, his voice catching. "The estate I've dreamed of owning since I was a boy." "Exactly," Emily said, her tone soft but commanding. "I bought it last month. But you get the photo, a reminder of what you'll never have." Robert's hands shook as he pulled out the property deed, his eyes scanning the document. "You bought this?" he whispered, disbelief etching his face. "That's right," Emily said. "And that's not all." She slid a business card across the table, the words Harper Elite Solutions embossed in silver. "I didn't just start a cleaning company. I built a premium service empire. We serve half the Fortune 500. With 250 employees and 9-figure revenue. Oh, and one more thing." She placed another card beside it. "He's consulting. For the past 4 years. Your company has been paying me millions as your confidential consultant. My team's strategies saved your firm from collapse." The table was a graveyard of stunned faces. Daniel spoke up, his voice steady. "I'm her business partner. I designed your company's cybersecurity infrastructure. Emily's the visionary. She transformed an industry." Ethan leaned forward, pale. "You're the consultant who streamlined my department's workflow? The one Dad couldn't stop praising?" "That's me," Emily said, her smile sharp. "The maid you laughed at has been running circles around you." Robert's bourbon glass trembled in his hand. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you bother to find out?" Emily countered. "I never hid my company's name. You just never cared enough to look." The room was heavy with the weight of her words. Then Emily pulled out another black envelope. "There's more," she said, her voice calm but lethal. "My team audited your company. Dad, we found something interesting." She slid the documents toward him. "You've been skimming 6% off project budgets, funneling it through shell companies into your personal accounts." Caleb gasped. "That's illegal." Ethan stood, his voice rising. "You're lying. Dad would never." Daniel cut in. "The evidence is airtight. I traced every transaction myself. Wire logs, fake contracts, the works." Robert's face drained of color. "What are you going to do?" he asked, his voice hollow. "That depends on you," Emily said. From the living room, Lucas and Ava's laughter drifted in, a stark contrast to the tension. Margaret's eyes glistened with pride and pain. Ethan placed a hand on Robert's shoulder. "Is it true, Dad?" After a long silence, Robert nodded. "It started small," he admitted. "The company was struggling. I needed to keep up appearances, for you. For our lifestyle." Emily's gaze was unflinching. "You called me a disgrace for wanting to be a maid. But the real disgrace was you. Hiding behind your pride while breaking the law." Robert's head bowed, his strength crumbling. "I can't fire you," Emily said. "But I advise your board. They trust me. One word from me, and you're finished." Caleb's voice shook. "That would destroy him. Bankruptcy. Maybe prison." "I know," Emily said, her tone steady. "But I'm giving you a chance to make it right." Lucas burst into the room, tugging at Daniel's sleeve. "Daddy, Grandma's cutting the cake." He paused, sensing the tension. "Is everything okay?" Daniel smiled. "Just grown-up talk, buddy. We'll be there soon." Emily looked at Robert. "Anything you want to tell the kids?" He shook his head. "They don't need to know. This is my mess to fix." Ethan and Caleb exchanged glances. "We'll help you, Dad," Ethan said. "We're family." Emily stood, her heart a tangle of emotions. The urge for revenge faded, replaced by a quiet strength. She'd come to prove a point. But now she saw something else, a chance for healing. However distant. "Let's go have cake," she said, leading the way to the living room, where her children's laughter lit up the darkness. 6 months later, Emily sat across from Margaret at a cozy cafe in Manhattan, the city's pulse humming beyond the window. "How's Dad?" she asked, stirring her latte. Margaret sighed. "He's struggling. After retiring, he lost the company apartment, his country club membership, everything. The board followed your advice, younger talent, they said. He's humbled, Emily. He apologized for how he treated you. Emily's gaze drifted to the straight. It's too late for apologies. But maybe he's learned something. Margaret squeezed her hand. He respects you now. He sees what you've built. Emily smiled faintly. He called me a maid to feel better about himself. But I don't need his approval anymore. She paused, then added with a wry grin. Tell him the cleaning industry's always hiring. I could show him how to handle a mop. They shared a bittersweet laugh. A release of years of pain. Emily had rewritten the Harper family story, not with vengeance, but with undeniable success. She'd built an empire, a family, a life, all without her father's blessing. The girl once dismissed as just a maid was now a force no one could ignore. And in that truth, Emily found peace. The dining room of the Harper estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, glowed under the soft flicker of a crystal chandelier. But the air was thick with tension. It was Robert Harper's 68th birthday. A night meant for celebration. Yet it felt like a battlefield. At the head of the table, Robert, a once untouchable titan of finance, sipped his bourbon, his silver hair catching the light. His sons, Ethan, 32, and Caleb, 36, traded stories of their latest triumphs. Ethan's ad campaigns dominating Times Square. Caleb's hedge fund soaring to new heights. But all eyes kept drifting to Emily Harper, 32. The daughter Robert had once banished for daring to dream small. Tonight, she sat poised, her navy blazer sharp, her hazel eyes unyielding. Beside her were her husband, Daniel Carter, and their children, Lucas, 6, and Ava, 4, a family Robert never knew existed until now. 8 years ago, Robert had called Emily a maid and a disgrace for wanting to start a cleaning business. He'd driven her out, mocking her ambition as she packed her bags and left. But Emily hadn't crumbled. She'd built Harper Elite Solutions, a premium cleaning empire serving Manhattan's elite. With 9-figure revenue and 250 employees, she'd also become a silent powerhouse, consulting for her father's own firm under the name He's Consulting, saving it from collapse while he remained oblivious. Tonight, she'd already dropped one bombshell. She owned Ocean Crest, the Hamptons mansion Robert had dreamed of for decades. The photo of it lay on the table, a cruel reminder of his failure. But Emily wasn't done. As the laughter from Robert's earlier jab at her maid status faded, Emily rose, her presence commanding the room. There's one more gift, Dad, she said, pulling a second black envelope from her purse. The clink of cutlery stopped. Robert's smirk faltered as he tore it open, revealing a stack of documents. His eyes scanned the pages, and the color drained from his face. What is this? He demanded, his voice a mix of dread and defiance. Emily's voice was calm but razor sharp. For 4 years, my team audited your company. We found something interesting. You've been skimming 6% off every project budget, funneling it through fake subcontractors into your personal accounts. She paused, letting the words sink in. Embezzlement. Dad, I have every transaction log, every wire transfer, every forged contract. It's airtight. The room was a vacuum. Ethan gasped, his wine glass trembling. That's a crime. Caleb stood, his face red with shock. You're making this up. Dad would never. Daniel, ever steady, cut in. I traced the data myself. The evidence is undeniable. Your father's been stealing from his own company for years. He slid a tablet across the table, displaying a spreadsheet of incriminating transactions. Robert gripped his bourbon glass, his knuckles white. What are you going to do with this? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. That depends on you, Emily said, her gaze unflinching. I advise your board. They trust me. One word from me, and you're facing bankruptcy, or worse, prison. From the living room, Lucas and Ava's laughter drifted in, a stark contrast to the suffocating silence. Margaret, Emily's mother, sat frozen, her eyes glistening with pride and pain. Ethan placed a hand on Robert's shoulder. Is it true, Dad? He asked, his voice breaking. After a long pause, Robert nodded, his shoulders slumping. It started small, he admitted, his voice hollow. The company was struggling. I needed to keep up appearances, for you. For our legacy, the private jets, the Greenwich estate, your educations, it all came at a cost. Emily's expression didn't soften. You called me a disgrace for wanting to start a cleaning business. You said I'd shame the family. But the real shame is you. Dad, you hid behind your pride while breaking the law. Caleb's voice trembled. This could ruin him. Emily, everything he's built. I know, she replied, her tone steady. But I'm giving you a chance to fix it. Step down. Make it right. Robert's head bowed, his strength crumbling under the weight of his daughter's words. The man who'd once dismissed her as just a maid, now faced the truth. Emily, the outcast, held the power. She wasn't just the owner of a cleaning empire. She was the strategist who'd saved his company. The consultant he'd unknowingly praised for years. The irony was brutal. Lucas burst into the room, tugging at Daniel's sleeve. Daddy, Grandma's cutting the cake. He paused, sensing the tension. Is everything okay? Daniel smiled, ruffling his son's hair. Just grown-up stuff. Buddy, we'll be there soon. Emily looked at Robert. Anything you want to tell the kids? He shook his head, his voice barely audible. They don't need to know. This is my burden. Ethan and Caleb exchanged glances. We'll stand by you. Dad, Ethan said. We'll get through this. Emily nodded, a flicker of peace softening her resolve. She'd come to prove a point. Not to destroy. Let's go have cake, she said, leading the way to the living room, where her children's laughter lit up the darkness like a beacon. 6 months later, Emily sat across from Margaret at a bustling Manhattan cafe, the city's energy pulsing beyond the window. How's Dad? She asked, stirring her latte. Margaret sighed, her face etched with worry. He's a shadow of himself. After he retired, the board cut him off. No severance. No perks. They said they needed fresh leadership, thanks to a certain consultant's advice. She gave Emily a knowing look. He's selling the Greenwich estate. Lost his country club membership. But he apologized. Emily, for everything. Emily's gaze drifted to the street. It's too late for apologies. But maybe he's learned what it means to fall. She paused, a wry smile tugging at her lips. Tell him the cleaning industry's always hiring. I could teach him how to use a mop. Margaret laughed, a bittersweet sound. He respects you now. He sees the empire you built. I don't need his respect. Emily said, her voice firm but calm. I stopped needing it years ago. She leaned back, her heart light. The girl once called a disgrace had rewritten the Harper story. She'd built Harper Elite Solutions from nothing, raised a family with Daniel, and carved out a life of purpose, all without her father's approval. The sting of his rejection had fueled her, but it no longer defined her. She was free. The story of Emily Harper is one of resilience and redemption. She turned her family's scorn into a spark that ignited an empire, proving that worth isn't tied to titles or wealth, but to grit and vision. Robert's pride led to his downfall, while Emily's perseverance lifted her to heights he could never imagine. Her triumph wasn't just in her success, but in her peace, a quiet, unshakable confidence that no one could take away. As she walked away from that cafe, the city skyline stretching before her, Emily knew she'd won, not just against her father, but for herself.